Welcome to Faith, Fuel, and Fitness, the Integrity Way, with your hosts, John and Debbie Morris from Integrity Training Systems.
Hey, everybody. It's so good to be back. I'm here in the studio with my husband, John Morris, and I want to talk about, I've got a couple topics, John. We decided, I'd take a couple segments and you would take a couple segments. Unfortunately, sometimes I'll pick a segment and then we literally end up making it a whole show. Yeah. That happened on the
last three shows. Something like
Did
that.
It, or okay.
At least two. At least two.
Okay, I know the Don't Rest Until the Mission is Complete show definitely.
Yeah, it's just important.
I felt like that was, a move of God. Like he just said, no, we're going to go ahead and stop and talk about this.
Yeah, all I was going to talk about was not tearing your rotator cuff, so it's not as cool.
We don't even need to know about that, right?
Easy.
Right. Well, I am in the process of writing a devotional. A devotional book. I have been writing it since the shutdown, the COVID shutdown that we had, the 2 months. I truly felt led to do that.
It's been a year, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that.
And so I'm trying to compile what would feel like, I would like to have, maybe 60 to 80 messages that people could read on a regular basis. And I have two messages that I wanted to share today, and I'm just going to read those particular messages. And I would like to get your opinion because, I did a radio show for 7 years, and it was kind of a blessing. I used to train a actual DJ, and he would bring me on his show, and they would keep inviting me back and say, hey, they keep asking questions about health and they really want to hear from you. And so finally the producer said, why don't you do a show? So I did. I had no experience, had no business doing a show. I mean, I just showed up one day and started talking about what I do and hoped that I didn't run out of things to talk about, right? Yeah. Exactly. And so I did it alone, and then had guests on and everything. And so to me, it's a tremendous blessing to have you on, John, because obviously I married you for a reason.
I'm awesome.
And we've been in business together, for many years. And I mean, I've also assisted you with 100-pound weight loss. I've gone through several different health trials with you, all the different scenarios that you have mentioned, on the station as well in terms of your story.
Right.
And I think that my opinion on health, my approach to health is one way.
Yep.
And I think that people may strive or aspire to maybe have the desire to be like that, okay, or to be that disciplined or to find a path similar to that. But I also think that your path and your process and the way you do things, it couldn't be more opposite.
Yeah, I mean, we're polar opposites.
However, I just think that people truly relate to it. And yet somehow God has designed a plan for you and I to be together. And we stand united, and we have power and authority over the enemy and any attacks that he brings against us. And because you're so opposite, and because I'm so opposite, it doesn't usually work against us. It works for us because we can forge through and just battle, just battle strong.
You mean like how I'm really serious and I'm always business and getting stuff done, and you just won't shut up and stop joking?
Oh, yeah. And I dance all the time.
Dance all the time. It's so awkward. I'm like, hey, thanks for coming into our gym. I know you're new.
John always says we're like the Chip and Joanna Gaines of the gym world.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
except I'm Joanna and you're Chip.
No, and I'm just going to be honest with you. That's false. He is definitely Chip.
Yeah, 100%.
He is the funniest Chip. Anyways, here's this message. I'm going to read it to you real quick. That's titled "One Foot in Front of the Other." And the scripture that it starts with is Matthew 7:13 through 14. And it says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." I think. And I actually get very motivated by that, where some people would read that and like, oh man,
I'm never gonna find
even
the small
faith
path.
Is hard.
Yeah.
You know, like the one thing that should be easy, even faith is hard, especially if you're struggling. But I actually find that to be a very motivating scripture, and I'm going to tell you why in this passage. It's a pretty short passage. But it says, this scripture builds my confidence when life feels rocky or when my vision seems cloudy. I clearly know in my heart what I need to do, and yet I face opposition on it. It's easy to think that opposition means I'm working out of the will of God. It's easy to throw in the towel and say, I better just give up that vision and stop working. None of this would be happening if it was God's plan, right? That couldn't be more false. In fact, the entire Bible is full of stories of folks who went through extreme hardship and opposition. They demonstrated faith, patience, and courage, and in the end, you see God's plan and purpose comes through for them. God's plan and his vision, typically, in my opinion, will lead you down a narrow path. It might have a rocky cliff on the side of it. He leads you through it. He draws the fear of the unknown out of you. He makes your feet feel like they are on solid ground. One foot in front of the other on the narrow path of faith will produce the results that truly will please God and ultimately do his work for his kingdom purposes. One foot in front of the other when you hear nothing but murmuring. One foot in front of the other when you feel alone and everyone is against you. One foot in front of the other when finances dip to a dangerous low. One foot in front of the other when your health takes a turn for the worse. And finally, one foot in front of the other when you deal with an unexpected loss. And then I close it with, remember these points. Number one, if God be for us, who dare be against us? And truly, who cares who is against us if you truly know in your heart that God is for you and you are completing his plan and fulfilling his vision for your life. Number two, you never walk alone. He is standing with you in all that you do. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Number three, he is your provider and your source. Number four, he is your healer, and with long life, God will satisfy you. You are strong in the Lord. And number five, God is near the brokenhearted. In spite of the narrow path, God is with you. He has the answers you need. Trust him and keep fighting for the vision he has given for you and never give up. I just want to talk about the narrow path to health. And unfortunately, it's very much, it's going to be impacted by all of the things I mentioned. Right. Finances dipping low, constant murmuring around you, feeling alone, like no one's there by your side, no one's there to support you. Isn't it funny how all of those things don't necessarily relate to how you eat in a day, or they don't necessarily relate to your health, and yet they have such a big impact on your overall ability to achieve a healthy lifestyle?
Well, they're going to have an impact on your overall ability to do anything. I mean, if you're deciding that you want to write a book and everybody around you is murmuring about why would you want to write a book, and that's going to be really difficult, and what do you even know about writing books? It's going to be hard to motivate yourself to want to write a book. You're going to listen to the agenda, listen to the story. So when it comes to health and it comes to wellness, I always think about things from a practical standpoint, like you just said, the narrow path. The narrow path in my mind is the difficult path. Okay. The concept is it's narrow because it's not easy. Well, if you're looking for the easy road, then you're already there. You're never going to achieve anything from staying in your own comfort zone. People get this weird notion that they can remain comfortable and still get to a different plateau. They want to achieve a goal or go somewhere different than where they are now, but they want to do it while staying in their comfort zone. And if you just think about what I just said, it doesn't even make sense. It's saying you want to go somewhere but stay where you are. You can't do that. You're either going or you're staying. And so when I think about the narrow path from a health perspective, I always think about how people get upset that they don't get to keep certain foods in their nutrition plan. They don't get to only work out a couple, maybe once a week. They don't get to have their daily glass of red wine. They don't get to have their chocolate every day. They get so focused on what they don't get to have that they're just willing to go back to that wider path.
Right. And I think that from a nutrition perspective, and the way that I have consulted with people on nutrition is, I think people either love me or they hate me because of the fact that I am honest about that one particular thing, that I do feel it is a narrow path, and I do feel it will require discipline, work, a tremendous amount of effort, but that your entire life will transform if you follow it. And that is what I teach, and that is how I support you and how I stand by you. If you would like more information on doing nutrition with us at Integrity Training Systems, just take a look at us at integritytrainingsystems.com. And for more information on meeting with a personal trainer for a free personal fitness assessment, you can give us a call at 636-299-2208, where the trainer will help to assess and identify any muscle imbalances, postural deviations that you have. They will teach you how to foam roll, how to stretch, and really get you started on how to start exercising appropriately for your body type and the season that you're currently in. Hey, everybody, it's so good to be back. Talking about the narrow path to health, and just that it is not the easy road, but it is the most fruitful. Just as that scripture that I mentioned in Matthew is talking about everlasting life and what you accomplish by following the narrow path of faith, and that the other path leads to destruction. The unfortunate thing when it comes to health is that, unfortunately, you can try to achieve balance with poison, but then you ultimately stay poisoned. So if you can truly get the mindset that you are going to transform your life and that you're committed to doing it and that you want to do whatever it takes to be able to do it, you shouldn't try to do it alone.
Right.
And I can tell you from personal experience that I have forged into territory on my own many, many, many times. I mean, when I initially decided to do what I do for a living and created Integrity, I mean, it was a very lonely process because you might have staff, but that staff works for you. So you lead them. You don't get to go to them. You can't talk to them about your problems. You can't, try to identify easier ways of doing things. They're relying upon you. So when you're trying to determine what it's going to take to get you to this healthy place, and you really want to be exceptional, you want to set yourself apart, I mean, you have to hire someone.
I think when it comes to health, what I find most interesting is people think that you shouldn't need an expert. I see so much on why hire a coach, or I can figure out how to work out, but people don't say they can figure out how to build their own house. I mean, people don't say, you know what, I'm just going to figure out how to repair my engine that just blew in my car. It's strange how the body, I mean, you're everything, you're who you are, what you get to live in, how you get to walk around. Why are you making that a DIY project?
Right.
It doesn't have to be a do-it-yourself, but there's almost like a strange stigma that you should be able to know how to do that. I see it a lot, especially in men. It's like men shouldn't be told how to lift weights, and every man knows how to cage fight. They're all fighters. And it's like, right. No, I mean, you've never been trained. It's okay. Like that might not be something you know how to do. And so when you're looking at fitness, as far as hiring somebody, you hit on a point in the first segment about how different you and I are. I mean, we couldn't be more different on our way of how we go about health and wellness, right? But I followed your path to a T for the beginning of my wellness change. And I lost over 100 pounds in 9 months. Okay. And then I started learning how to figure out how to live my life around the parameters and the guidelines that you helped me establish. And then I started trying to change my structure. I went through growing muscle. I went through some health issues that I was able to overcome because I had figured out a lifestyle. And the reason I bring that up, and I bring up how different we are, and that my lifestyle and the way I figured it out might be different than yours now, is because I still used the assistance of someone else who had a higher level of knowledge on health to get me to a level where I could establish a lifestyle. And so many people, I think, spin their wheels in that first phase, listening to everybody around them, listening to the guy at the gym eat chicken and rice, listening to the influencer on social media that says be vegan, listening to their buddy who says this is how I did it. And the problem is none of those things are inherently wrong. It's that if you try to do all of them, if you try to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and then you're also trying to have your own moderation because you're not willing to sacrifice everything you need to sacrifice to change, you're not going to get to where you're trying to go. You do have to find a path to follow. And so getting someone who has actually based their life on figuring out how to go through the information, sifting through all of the garbage, but also sifting through all of the things that do work to help create a plan specific to you, it's just important.
And it's important to understand that there are no two people alike. So you just have to be willing to meet with someone and to let them design something that works for you. And it takes time, so it won't happen overnight. Again, that's that narrow path, is that you have to recognize that when someone meets with me, I mean, they meet with me for 6 months. And then a lot of times, I would say 50% of the people that meet with me, they stay with me for a minimum of another 6 months.
I mean, that's why I married you, so I wouldn't gain my weight back.
Right. Then you didn't have to pay for the visits. Right. Yeah. Exactly. But, and then I have a master's class, where people stick with that. But at the end of the day, it's learning and understanding all of those little details. And then it's having someone supporting you
when you're walking
through that process.
When you're walking a narrow path on a cliff, it's nice to be attached to someone that knows how to guide you.
Right.
And so here's the other thing, if we're going to continue with this parallel. If you think about walking a narrow path, just because you see someone sprinting on it doesn't mean you can.
Right.
There are going to be people that just do it. They just figure it out. They're just good at it. And we've talked about before how you might look at someone and think they've figured it out because they're so visually aesthetically pleasing, but who knows how healthy they are.
Right.
I'm going to take a step further than that. Maybe they're actually really healthy and they're eating garbage all day.
Right.
They're a small percent. They do exist, but if you try to base what you're going to do off of that, your chances of success are even smaller than what chance they had when they figured it out on their own.
It's really the best case scenario is that you don't do what everyone else is doing and you do what makes sense for you.
Right.
And you want to work with doctors. You want to work with a personal trainer. You want to work with a nutrition coach, health coach that understands that and doesn't put you into this mass group where you're just sort of doing what everyone else is doing and that they don't have an understanding specifically of how your body metabolizes food. What is your schedule? And then how do they change it per the season that you're in? Because the reality is that after 3 months, you're going to grow and your metabolism is going to change. It should improve. I mean, overall, your health should improve. And so at that point, I have people, I have to double their food because their metabolism becomes so efficient. Then I have people that I have to do reductions because they just get to a place where we realize, we really don't need that much food. We're actually going to do okay with even less. Some people don't do well with starch in the beginning, but then other people, they do just fine, or we start to add it as we go, but we learn it. It's a process. I have designed a process of how to determine all of that. And then I've also designed a process of how to assign what you should and shouldn't be eating while teaching you all the ins and outs about nutrition along the way so that when it's all said and done, you're left with a pretty solid lifestyle plan that you can follow for both you and your family. That is what our 6-month nutrition program is. For more information on that, you can take a look at us at integritytrainingsystems.com. We also have our group nutrition program that is getting ready to start on May the 23rd with a live video every week that you can type in and ask questions, as well as podcasts, cooking videos, and workout assistance. Take a look at the website for more information on that. That is called the Masters Program. And then, of course, there's one-on-one nutrition, as well as the opportunity to do a fitness assessment with any of our personal trainers. Just identify any structural imbalances that you have. It's free of charge. Give us a call at 636-299-2208 to get scheduled today.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be back. Thanks for tuning in. Last two subjects, or if I can talk here, last two segments, we've actually been talking about the narrow path and trying to overcome being on a narrow path and trying to get knocked off of that. All of the things that are going to come up, all of the people you're going to be listening to, watching everybody take the non-narrow path and seeing how easy that appears to be. But people aren't going to get to where they're trying to go if they don't follow that path. And one thing I want to talk about with that is everybody always seems to be looking for the shortcut. And when it comes to shortcuts, they're not just looking for the shortcut anymore, in my opinion, because they don't want to put in the work. They're also looking for the shortcut because, unfortunately, our entire society as a world has become so short burst that nobody even really knows how to look at things for the long haul anymore. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and hate on Instagram and social media and these things, but these videos are so quick. It's bam, 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 information overload of this stuff hitting you. So when you tell someone they're going to take 6 months to do something, they're like, excuse me? I've got 17 days until I'm on the beach.
Right.
And
right.
it's like, ooh, okay, well, I mean, we might be able to change something, but not what you're asking for,
Right.
And so people are always looking for that shortcut. And so you hear about things like, tummy tucks and surgeries and, there is a place for all of that stuff. Pills, people that get the surgical procedure done where their stomach size is decreased. The unfortunate thing is a lot of times what I find, and we talk about this a lot, is when you do things like that, the mindset is usually not in place to not revert exactly back to where you were before you had the procedure done. Mm-hmm. And so I want to talk a little bit about why, again, you need to have someone in your court, someone on your side, someone in your corner, because if you go and you think about, okay, I have an eating problem. I overeat all the time. So I'm going to have this surgery done and they're going to reduce the size of my stomach. Okay. And because of that, I'm not going to be able to consume the same amount of food and I'm going to lose weight. Concept sounds great. If as your stomach grows, you don't go back to eating the way you ate. If you don't prepare your mind for that, that's exactly what you're going to do. Because as you get hungrier and hungrier and hungrier and your stomach gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you're just going to go right back to where you were. And unfortunately, we have clients that come to us and they've done that and They've tried that. And, you think about the pain and everything that goes into following that, right? And then as far as like a tummy tuck goes, like if you're thinking about doing something like that because you want to look a little better than you feel like you look right now, but the reality is you need to drop 50 pounds. Why not drop the 50 pounds? And then if you actually need that procedure, have that be something that you pursue. Mm-hmm. Your order's mixed up. And a lot of times that has to do with the mindset. And we were talking a little bit about comparing a do-it-yourself project. And I just want to go back to that of like a do-it-yourself project of working on your car versus a do-it-yourself project of working on your health. Where this gets even trickier than what we've already talked about, which is that you may not have the knowledge of it and you shouldn't have to feel like you shouldn't hire someone to help you, is there's an emotional component that goes into this that has to relate to that mindset where more people than I was even aware of until getting into this industry have some sort of weird connection and or addiction to food. Mm-hmm. And so you may not even realize how much of a struggle you have with that. And when it comes time to do it yourself on this work and you're trying to figure out what you need to eat, you may grab something that's completely against what you should be having, even though you know the science, you have the framework, the do-it-yourself online program that tells you how to do it, because you have an emotional attachment. You're not going to do that when it comes to 2x4s as you're working on your house. You're not going to be like, well, I really like this type of 2x4 in my wall, so I'm going to use that for my structure and potentially sabotage my house. You're not going to do that, right. But you may do that with food. And it's fascinating because, and I'm going to let you talk a little bit on this, Debbie, because you deal with more nutrition than I do. But I've even seen people go as far as like being excited that they did forget their food for the day because they know that they then have a reason to go fail. And they're okay with that because their mindset isn't in place.
Right. Meaning like, oh gosh, I forgot to bring my food
Yeah,
today,
I didn't bring my food, so I
I'm
better
just
go
gonna
grab
blow it.
something.
Right.
And instead of trying to make a good choice, the justification comes into place to have something they shouldn't have. And next thing you know, they're off the wagon. And
Right.
and I know you deal with this, and this is where someone like you comes into play. Because it adds a component of, if I do this and if I go down the slippery slope and continue to let it happen, I have someone to report back to on this.
Right.
You know, I want to use real quick, and I want you to talk a little bit on this. Like my parents, for example, my parents are really trying to kind of get themselves in a healthier position, and COVID hit them. You know, both my parents got COVID and they were doing great. They were ordering Pure Plates. That's all they were eating. They were both dropping weight. They were feeling better. And so they went through COVID and their taste changed. And so they got to where they didn't want the Pure Plates meal anymore. And now they're struggling to get back in line. Now, my parents don't work with Debbie. And so they don't have that added component of someone that they are going to come back to say, hey, I've kind of slipped off of this thing. They're trying to kind of navigate it on their own. Now, obviously, we help them, but it's not the same scenario. If they were to walk into a situation where they actually were to say, hey, guys, we want you to be like we have hired you, then they're going to have someone to give that added layer of, okay, well, just trying to figure it out day by day isn't going to work. It never does.
I think it just helps for people. You know, you can just see, like, I had a couple that came in this weekend. They drove over from Illinois, and they drove like an hour and 30 minutes to see me.
Right.
And, you know, they're in their late 60s, and they are really dealing with a lot of health issues, some significant health issues. They really need a doctor that's just going to sit down and peel layers off of their body. But they also really need their body to calm down enough for the doctor to even be able to do that. So I referred them to a doctor, which I'm okay with the fact that they can't get in for 2 months, because I kind of need the 2 months to calm their system down enough to where the doctor might actually be able to figure out what's wrong with them, instead of just dealing with all these major responses that the body's having right off the bat. They're all like surface responses, you know, that the reactions that they're having to food. But what I can tell you is when they sat down in the chair and I sort of explained ahead of time what I'm about to do and what I'm going to write down on this paper and what I'm going to write down on that paper, there was sort of like this sigh of relief, like, oh, she's going to write down exactly what to eat.
Correct.
And like the only thing that we have to do is go home and follow that.
Right.
You know, we don't have to read a book. We don't have to weigh it. We don't have to measure it. We just have to go home and do what's exactly on this page.
Right.
And I witnessed the actual settling into the chair, and I witnessed the posture change when they saw that that's exactly what I was going to do. The relief came that, okay, someone's in this with me. You know, we have hope. And so I told them very specifically, stay anchored to hope, because our pastor says it all the time, and I truly believe it, because there is hope. They have hope. When they do change their food, they are going to feel different. And I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you, they're going to feel different.
Well, and you're not a
lot
doctor.
of what they're feeling is coming from what they're eating.
And that's why we work with doctors. Because again, it takes all types. Like if you go to a professional mechanic's place of business, you're going to have people that work on different things. There's some bleed over, there's some crossover, but there are people that have individual different tasks that they work on, right? So we have to collect a team of people that can work together to help everybody we work with.
Absolutely. I mean, and we definitely have a team of people that we work with. I mean, I work with Alex Chin for acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine. Work with Dr. Anna Bone for applied kinesiology, muscle testing. I work with Abe Carpenter for chiropractic care. These are just small amounts of people.
Dr.
Work with
Bly.
Dr. Richard Bly for hormone replacement therapy.
Right.
These are people that we personally work with, but these are people that we refer people to on a regular basis. You know, Dr. Bly does the vitamin therapy. Dr. Naputi does the vitamin therapy.
These are things that when you're just thinking, okay, I want to lose weight, or okay, I want to be a little bit healthier, but you're just trying chicken, rice, and green beans and doing cardio 5 days a week. This is why not everything out there works. Like you may actually need some of these other layers.
Well, and you just need someone. I mean, you have to think like, I mean, I'm 46 years old. I've spent over 22 years meeting with people one-on-one.
Right.
I can look at you and say, in 22 years,
Right.
people your age, your shape, your whatever, this is kind of what the story's been.
Right.
This is how they've responded to things. We're about to determine, are you anything like them, or are you going to be the polar opposite
Which
like
happens,
me?
right.
I'm nothing like anybody else. I mean, I never handle anything like anybody else body-wise.
Yes.
But I've been through it with so many people in so many different directions. So yes, I have certifications, and yes, I have all of these doctors that I work with, but I also just have experience.
And that's the biggest thing for me. It is just the experience, because that's what sold me on working with you when I first did, is I could tell you weren't going to approach the way you worked with me the same way as everyone else after that baseline beginning. And I think you hit this on the head with hope. Sometimes people let fear come in place of their hope. So they sit down to learn nutrition and they look at how bare it is and how quote unquote bleak it can seem, because they don't recognize that it's a season. They're going to be starting in a season that's going to be a little stricter, a little bit harder, and then they're going to loosen up, because that's how you make determinations to figure out the lifestyle you're going to live, like I had to do. But if you don't go in that hard, if you don't remove all the variables, you find yourself in this whirlwind of not ever actually really knowing what affects you. And so people have to learn to have that faith in what they're doing. And like I said earlier, stick to something. Don't be jumping all over the place.
And the one thing that I've done, I wrote 5 cookbooks, and the 5 cookbooks, the reason I wrote them was because I couldn't send them to the store for everything. I mean, I couldn't send them to a restaurant. Pure Plates didn't exist. Primal salad dressing didn't exist. Mayonnaise didn't exist. I used to write down for people how to make everything,
right,
so their food would taste good.
Right.
So they didn't just eat steamed broccoli and chicken. They need quality fats. So let's make a salad dressing so that your food tastes good. And then realizing that everything that people are eating and that's bad for them, we could come up with a creative way of making that in a healthy fashion with the right ingredients that don't cause a histamine response, don't prompt your blood sugar to spike, and don't cause inflammation in your body. And that's what my studies are in. And so I love to cook. So I've just created a scenario where I train people on how to cook better, and that's part of the coaching that I do. With the 6-month nutrition program, yes, I do tell you exactly what to eat, but I also tell you how to prepare it. I tell you where to shop for it. I tell you how to combine it, and I try to teach you what to do to kind of get your family on board with you as well. For more information on that 6-month nutrition program, you can take a look at us at integritytrainingsystems.com. We also have our new master's class getting ready to start on the 23rd of April. That is an online group nutrition program and is fantastic. We definitely have live cooking tutorials all throughout that 6 months, really giving you the opportunity to learn how to make your food taste great. And that is also out there under the nutrition tab on the website at integritytrainingsystems.com. For more information on a free personal fitness assessment with a personal trainer, you can also give us a call at 636-299-2208.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for staying tuned with us as we enter our last segment here. We're going to kind of shift topics here a little bit on you guys. I want to talk a little bit today about a question that I see popping up all over our fitness industry, and that is, what is too young to start strength training, and am I too old to be strength training? And then I also want to talk a little bit about the benefits of strength training and why we would do it for that spectrum, from the start to finish. And I want to open that topic by first saying I use the terminology bodybuilding a lot. I say, okay, I'm going to be training you in a bodybuilding style. Like, we're going to be building this area of your body. And I, unfortunately, because of social media, I give a lot of credit for this situation. But unfortunately, just in our world, bodybuilding as a competition, as a sport, has become so prevalent that terminology immediately makes people think that I'm talking about putting them on a stage. And I'm not. I'm talking about building their body,
right,
which is what bodybuilding means.
Right.
And then if you decide to present that on a stage and do a competition, good for you. And unfortunately,
it's just a competitive
it's
form.
just a competitive form.
Yeah.
You know, it's no different than people that do jujitsu but never do a jujitsu competition.
Or people that just run in
Right.
the morning
and they never
run
race.
a marathon.
You know, there's
right.
there's different reasons to do it. So let's start by talking a little bit about the age, Deb, and I'm going to let you open this up. When is a kid old enough to strength train, in your opinion, and what would the benefits of a younger person be for doing that?
I mean, there's a lot of different opinions on that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been really tough. Like, I can tell you in different certifications, it's like actually been very different.
Right.
And then I also feel that doctors have different opinions. So I'm not trying to tell you that what I'm about to say makes me an expert or
Right.
that it's the exact way you should do it, because there's still growth that needs to transpire. But I mean, my parents had me athletic when I was like out of the womb.
Yeah.
You know, so I just don't remember a time where my dad didn't have me intentionally running up a hill or trying to lift something or trying to push something or trying to pull something. I mean, just that was my whole
Yes.
life. I just don't understand why we say, oh, no, you can't go into the gym and do that, but yet we'll try to put him in a sport. And the problem is, because you don't go into the gym and do that with your kids, they're actually going to get hurt in the sport.
So this
you know?
this is why I actually posed this question to Debbie, because I had a feeling that was going to be the answer. She didn't even know it was coming. Kind of sprung that on her. And my point is, just like everything in our industry, as blanket as this is to say this, everybody is different. The problem with strength training or bodybuilding for youth is a lot of times it's just done wrong, you know? And so like, as far as pushing or pulling something outside or playing, you know, touch football or running around or riding a bike or whatever it may be, people have this fear in the gym because most adults don't even know how to lift right.
Right.
So you bring a kid in the gym and you put a bar on their back and you try to get them to squat, they probably are going to get hurt. You know, what is the load? What should it be? Is their form right? Are they even able to have the form, because are they at an age where they're in a growth spurt so their joints are still kind of awkward? These are the things you would have to look at when determining the age that someone is capable of working out at.
Right.
You know, and you see this a lot, like even on social media, you'll see influencers. There's this one guy, I don't know his name. I think he's only like 16 now, but he's been lifting weights to be a bodybuilder since he was like 8. The kid looks phenomenal.
I started lifting weights in the 6th grade.
And so that's what I mean. So everybody is different on that, first off.
In
Okay,
the
so
gym.
that's part of what I want to make a point of. The second thing is, it really comes down to just knowing what you're doing. And that ties into, like we talked about earlier, having someone to assist you on that. On the other end of that spectrum, talking about, am I too old to strength train? It's the same conversation, guys. I mean, you're never too old to strength train. I always use Greg that comes into our gym as an example. Greg is he? I know he wouldn't mind me telling his age. Is he 67 now?
I'm not sure.
He's
definitely in his 60s.
He's in his mid 60s, and he didn't even start lifting. He was 60.
Right.
Okay.
He's actually a competitive bodybuilder now.
He actually bodybuilds
Right.
as a competitor, not just to build his body. But that's not why he started. He started to build his body. He was a runner, and he just had a day that he recognized his muscles weren't where they needed to be. And so he wanted to create a situation where he knew he was going to be protecting his body. And so he got into strength training and quote unquote bodybuilding in his 60s.
Yeah, you took the class, some of my group classes in the beginning, and I mean, I have some really strong females that work out with me, but I mean, like, they were completely outlifting him the entire time. And
Right.
he'll say to this day, I'll never forget, I grabbed 10-pound dumbbells and I couldn't get through 10 reps.
Right.
And the girl next to me was using 20-pound dumbbells,
Right.
you know.
And-
but I was like, well, she didn't start there either.
Correct.
You know.
And that's the thing, is a lot of people, I think, because they can't lift much or because they never have, they become afraid in that age. I had a seniors class that was running. It was phenomenal. Unfortunately, it kind of ended with the beginning of the COVID pandemic, just because the people that were coming kind of weren't comfortable coming into the gym, because literally my youngest person was in their mid 70s. I mean, this was a mid 70s to like one early 90s class.
Amazing class.
And these people, like some of them, when they first started coming in, couldn't raise their arms over their shoulders. Some of them had to walk with a cane. And I'm no miracle worker, okay? It's just science. Every single one of them got to a place where they weren't walking with a cane. They weren't walking with a walker. Their posture improved. They went from looking like they could have some form of scoliosis to being able to stand more upright. They could put their arms overhead. And it wasn't perfect. It's not like they were doing perfect arms straight up overhead, gymnast style wall sliding, but they were over their head. Mm-hmm. And my point with that is your muscles are meant to be used.
Yes.
And if you don't use them, you will lose them.
Right.
And so as you age, it used to be, well, don't strength train. You could tear something. You could break something. Just stick to cardio. Well, what is that going to do for you if you just hurt your joints doing the cardio?
Well, and then if you fall and you don't have a protective barrier to be able to protect you from breaking a bone.
That is one thing that this class talked about. I had 2 people in this class that did fall after a duration of having worked in the class, and the only injuries were soreness. And they both attested to, I am only sore. The last time I fell, I broke, insert what they broke here. Right? So it's one of those scenarios where it's like you actually have the musculature to protect the fall, but even beyond that, you may have the musculature to prevent more falls.
Right. Strength training is life changing, and it can save your life. I mean, honestly, it can lower your blood pressure, to lower your blood sugar, and it'll create a shape that will bring you into all different seasons of your life, all different years of your life in such a more secure fashion. I mean, it truly is. I can't say enough good things about weight training. And over the years, I've worked with people of all ages. I mean, at one point, I had an 80-year-old. He used to kneel on a ball and do overhead shoulder presses. I mean, it was just pretty phenomenal. But, you get more stability with strength training. I mean, you just simply do. It's the foundation. And that's what we teach. I mean, that's what we've always taught at Integrity is structural integrity. But building a foundation with that structural integrity.
And that's the thing. I mean, if you're 9 years old or you're 90 and you know that you need to start strength training, find somebody, find someone qualified, find someone you can work with. Check us out, check Integrity out. Come in and do the free fitness assessment, because what's going to happen is you're going to realize that you have the ability to alter how you live the rest of your life, no matter how much life you have left. You're going to lengthen how much life you have left. And the thing that's cool about the strength training is, like we said, even beyond the potential injury that occurs, your daily life gets easier. It used to be do cardio, don't strength train, because you do want to work your heart and lungs, but you have to protect the rest of the body. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if you've ever strength trained right, you're working your heart and lungs. Absolutely. Okay, so you're actually getting the whole package with that. And lastly, you're also going to make what you do on a daily basis easier. Getting in and out of a truck, just carrying anything you need to carry. That's what it's all about. It's all about training to live.
It really is. That's what we do at Integrity, and that's what we would like to help you with. If you would like, come in for a free personal fitness assessment with a personal trainer. We'll identify any structural issues that you're having. We'll teach you mobility exercises. We'll teach you stretching and foam rolling, get you ready for strength training so that you don't get injured with the strength training. The number to reach us for a personal fitness assessment, a free personal fitness assessment, is 636-299-2208. And for more information on a one-on-one 6-month nutrition program with myself, or to join our master's class that is starting April the 23rd, you can take a look at us at integritytrainingsystems.com. We pray this information will resonate with you, bless you, and create a new path, whether it be narrow or not, but a new path to health and wellness and greater faith.
See you next week.
God bless you.